So I posted the entry about how it all began. I recorded it back in February 2nd, and I posted it a couple of days ago. And I just kind of need to talk about what's my reaction right now and what's the new level of processing. And doing it before my 3:30 counseling session. If I could talk it out now, I could talk it out even better in therapy. So I've said in other videos about how, like, part of me was like, oh, I want to, release her name to the world for retribution and all of that. But then I had a therapy session having a breakthrough, and I talked about how the therapist kind of pinpointed where that anger was really coming from, and it was not having a goodbye, not receiving a goodbye. And it's kind of like when she said that, it pricked the bubble and it popped, and everything flowed, and my heart space no longer felt blocked. And then it was like, okay, well, time will tell if that sticks. And it did. It stuck. Excuse me, some on my tongue. I ate an apple. Sorry, I know that's not cute. Sorry, I won't do that on camera next time. What was I saying? I'm like my heart space. Oh, and if that would stick, like, there was times where I thought I had gotten through that anger, and then I would be pissed off like the next day, but it stuck. It stuck for days. It stuck for weeks. And we had also talked about how if I decided to name her, it had to be about me, not about her. And I really took that to heart because for the most part, I wasn't going to name her because I didn't want to put myself in a position of retribution on her behalf. Like, she tries to sue me for slander by saying I'm making up this story. That would be incredibly foolish of her to do, considering circumstantial though it may be, plenty of evidence of what I've been sharing. And I've only been sharing about her and her immediate family in terms of the names that I gave. There are no other names that I will be giving, including the people that I know knew, because their names aren't instrumental to the story. But for me to release everything about that relationship, I need to also release her name. I need to release her identity. I can't hold anything back. It's basically where that therapy session got me to. It put me back on track for remembering my why I'm doing this. And I'm doing this for my healing, not to hurt her, not to get back at her. I'm doing this for me. And now I know my why is, this is my goodbye. This is my goodbye. This is the purging. This is the reminiscing. This is everything I have within me that has to do with my relationship with Sonya is coming out. Even the stuff that I'm embarrassed about. Like, I have a couple of emails, or at least, no, I think it's one email. It's just long enough to be 2 or 3 emails that I do not look good. It's rather pathetic. But again, purging it all. So when I made that recording, I was fine. It felt good to actually feel like I was telling my actual story. Because up until this point, I've been talking about, how this was abusive, how this was traumatic, how I'm dealing with it, but I hadn't told the actual story as I lived it. And so that was the beginning of that, and that felt really good. And then that video sat for weeks. That and about 7 other videos I had already recorded. I was basically just had a backlog of uploading the videos. I wasn't like, well, with that one, I did want to make sure I felt okay to publish it. So when I finally got to it, when I was coming up on my backlog, it was entry number 14. And I felt okay. I was like, yeah, I'm okay with this. Like when I between in the time between when I recorded the video and was going to upload the video, I have had no issues. I haven't been angry. I haven't been dwelling. I've been more actually dealing with anxiety about my work than I have been about this story retelling. And so I was fine to upload it. Cool. It's out there now. And thought really nothing else of it until I knew people were watching it. It's like I knew in my mind, of course, I'm putting this out here for people to watch it. But as has continued to happen on this journey, I'm feeling feelings that I had no idea to anticipate. I basically this journey is because I cannot anticipate how I'm going to feel, and I'm having new emotional experiences, and this is, I guess, the trauma leaving my body. Because I talked about victim brain. I talked about the part of me that hates I'm doing this. That part of me is much, much, much smaller now. That part of me actually is barely there. But there's still some fear and there's still some sadness. The fear, which I think is actually just based in sadness. I don't know. I don't know. This is what I'm talking about with my therapist. The fear is if she tries to retaliate with like trying to take me to court, that's just going to be a lot to have to deal with. Financially, socially, energetically, time, labor, just again, it would be foolish for her to do, but I'm not in her head, I'm not in her heart. I don't know. That's like the worst case scenario for me, and that's kind of where some of the fear is. Honestly, the most likely scenario is she's going to continue to ignore it and just go on about her business. Because that's how you do with things in the church. You ignore it, go on about your business. That's fine. But then I think the sadness comes in, like kind of like a bit of mourning. Like I'm letting it go. The more I tell, the more of my story I tell, the more of it I'm letting go of. But I think in that letting go, there's still a bit of mourning. And I guess that's why I didn't feel anything between when I recorded it and when I posted it, because nobody had seen it. There was nothing for me to feel because it was still just between me and me. But now that it's out there, and I'm like, again, this is another level of vulnerability and being seen. I think that's also maybe another part of it. Like this transparency, like I'm getting more and more naked in my telling of this. Like, and that's a lot. That's a lot. This is out here for anybody to see. I am revealing this this thing that has been a secret for so many years, 2 decades. 2 decades, 22 years of holding this. The only other people who knew about this were people I was in partnerships with. So that's a total of 5 people. Actually, 4. I said 5, but one of them was her. So I told a total of 4 people in my life about this relationship. Specifically, being with the pastor's wife of my church. Socially, I would say I've been with somebody 20 years older with me, or yeah, that's what I would say. I would talk about being with somebody 20 years older with me, but I didn't have the context if I was 18 and they were 38, or that they were a person who had watched me grow up. I didn't have all that other context. I just had, yeah. So opening this part of myself as well as this part of my heart, because the other part that I have to talk about is how deeply I loved her and the future I saw for us. And it feels so foolish now. It's like embarrassing to even admit this, but it's what it was. And so that all has to come out. So yeah, whew, that's a lot. That's a lot in 10 minutes. And it's still I feel my heart space flooding up again. And this time it's not anger. It's not anger. Like, I'm not back in that space of wanting retribution. And another thing I realized with that is what really helped me deal with that was really looking at the grand scheme of things. And in the grand scheme of things, most of us have been molested, assaulted, raped, abused in some way. Now, for me, because I had never been physically abused or forcibly sexually abused, I never saw myself as being abused. Now I see how I was a recipient of emotional abuse. But back to my point is that while it's certainly not a hierarchy of pain or oppression Olympics or anything like that, just acknowledging that there are so many people, men, women, and everyone in between, of all genders, all races, who have experienced physical and or emotional abuse, typically much more than I have, who never even had it acknowledged, never had anyone look out for them, never had any kind of retribution. Like, the person who did it to them lived the rest of their life just seemingly just guilt-free, punishment-free. That's the more common story. And that being said, who am I to deserve retribution more than somebody who has gone through worse? And I really don't like to compare, like, there's always somebody who has it worse. But no, I'm going to acknowledge this. There are people who might be listening to my story and like, oh man, that's unfortunate, but let me tell you what I got for you. And I acknowledge that, because, and it's a shame that that's the reality for most of us. We got stories to top each other's traumas. Like, and that's why, particularly with Black folks, we gotta laugh this shit off. We make humor out of our trauma because that's the only way that you can just process it at the end of the day sometimes. So once that realization hit me, that also helped me to cool down, because it's like, the most common thing, of course, people don't get held accountable for what they've done to others. That's just how the world currently works. And it's a shame that the world currently works like that, mostly due to religion. In this country, mostly due to Christians, bad Christians, or people who call themselves Christians but have not a lick of the Spirit of Christ in them. Because that's very different from people who are truly Christ following and have the heart of the Lord. So, I think I might have got out what I needed to get out. I got to go back and watch this again so I can reprocess. As always, thank you for listening. And I am open to your comments, questions, and concerns. If you have any, just write them below. Thank you.